Welcome everyone to today's deep dive. We're really thrilled to have you joining us for what is going to be a highly practical, genuinely eye-opening exploration today.
Oh, absolutely. It's a big one.
Yeah, but before we get any further into the weeds, literally and figuratively here, please make sure you like, subscribe, follow, and, turn on that notification bell right now.
Yeah, please do. It's really the lifeblood of what we do here.
Exactly. It's the absolute best way to make sure you never miss one of our deep dives. Now, before we jump into today's source material, I do have a mandatory disclaimer that I must share with you regarding the Martin Stevens versus OpenAI matter.
Right, right. Let's get that out of the way.
Yeah. So to be completely clear here, this is not a lawsuit. We are currently in a voluntary quiet period, and this is strictly at Martin Stevens' request. So you, the listener, you shouldn't infer or assume that any settlement progress has been made whatsoever. And finally, the dead man's switch has not been activated, meaning Martin is physically and legally safe.
Thank you for getting that on the record.
Of course. Okay, so let's get back to today's mission. Picture this, all right. You are standing in your front yard. It's a completely mundane evening. You're just, watering your bushes, winding down for the night, and the sun has fully set.
Just a normal Tuesday.
Right. And as the water hits the leaves in front of you, you spot this faint, strange green light glowing from deep inside the foliage.
Oh, that's creepy.
Yeah. And your first instinct is probably just to brush it off, like maybe it's a firefly or, I don't know, a reflection from a street lamp.
Sure, you try to rationalize it.
Exactly. But you step closer, you part the leaves, and you realize it is not a bug. It is a glass lens.
Wow.
You are being watched.
I mean, it is the ultimate violation of your private space.
It really is. So today, we're exploring this highly disturbing nationwide trend in residential burglaries. We're going to break down how this covert surveillance technology actually works, examine this massive vulnerability in your current smart home setup, and, outline specific counter-espionage tactics you can use to secure your property.
Because, honestly, that scenario you just painted, it isn't an urban legend.
No, it's not. That is almost verbatim what happened to a homeowner named George Nguyen. He's out in West Covina, California.
Right, the West Covina case.
Yeah, he was literally out watering his hedges after dark when he saw that exact green light. So he dug into the fake grass near his pathway and pulled out a rectangular device. It was like about 10 inches long and 4 inches high.
Just sitting there in the grass.
Just staring right at his front door. And thankfully, he immediately covered the lens with his thumb, physically turned the device away from his house, and called the police.
Which is, and we'll get into this more later, but that's the exact protocol you want to follow.
Right. Okay, let's unpack this a bit. Let's look at the anatomy of what George actually found. Because when we hear, hidden surveillance, we tend to think of James Bond, right?
Yeah, exactly. Microscopic lenses or some multi-million-dollar stealth tech developed by a defense contractor.
Right, something the size of a pinhead.
But according to the LA County Sheriff's deputies who've been recovering these devices, the reality is incredibly DIY. I mean, they are almost MacGyver-esque in their simplicity.
Okay, so what do they actually look like?
Well, when deputies investigated a burglary in the San Dimas area, they found consumer-grade cell phones, just normal phones, connected to portable Wi-Fi hotspots.
Wait, really? Just a cell phone and a hotspot?
Yeah. But because these arrays require a tremendous amount of power to constantly process and, upload video, the criminals wire them into massive, heavy, external battery banks.
Okay, so it's this big, clunky brick of electronics. How are they hiding that in a bush?
It's so low-tech. They literally just wrap the entire electronics brick in green camouflage duct tape. Or in some cases, they literally glue fake plastic leaves to the exterior.
Oh my God. So they're building battery-powered bush cams. It's so low-tech, but the tactical application is incredibly sophisticated.
Yeah.
They're basically wedging a taped-up brick into a hedge to run a continuous stakeout. But, who is funding and executing this? Because this feels less like a traditional smash and grab and more like high-level espionage tactics applied to everyday suburban neighborhoods.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. And it's tied to a rapidly expanding phenomenon known as burglary tourism.
Burglary tourism.
Yes. So, according to Sergeant Stephen Spagan of the West Covina Police Department, and this is corroborated by detectives up in Placer County, California, too many of these cases link directly to South American theft groups, or SATG.
Wow, okay, so this is organized.
Highly organized. These are loosely affiliated criminal networks that travel internationally,
Cool.
specifically to execute high-value property crimes.
That is insane.
Yeah, we actually recently saw 3 Colombian nationals arrested in Temecula in connection with these exact types of operations.
So this changes the entire threat model. We aren't just talking about, opportunistic locals looking for an unlocked window anymore.
Precisely. These are targeted, meticulously planned operations. The camera represents their reconnaissance phase.
Right, so they're watching before they strike.
Exactly. They plant these devices in affluent yards to map out a family's behavioral algorithm. They want to know when you leave for work, when the kids arrive from school,
When the dog walker comes.
right, and when the house is reliably empty. By streaming this data, they minimize their risk of an unpredictable encounter, and they can pinpoint the exact window of opportunity.
And looking at the sources, this is migrating rapidly. Like, we've got major clusters in Southern California, Chino Hills, where a camera was disguised as a flower, of all
Oh
things.
yeah, the flower disguise.
Palos Verdes, Arcadia, Santa Barbara. But the NYPD has officially issued warnings about this too, so it's a nationwide trend targeting high-value suburban neighborhoods.
Which, brings us to the most glaring question in all of this.
The tech gap. Yeah, this is the piece that had me pulling my hair out when I was reading through the research.
It's baffling at first glance.
Right, because if we're talking about high-value suburban neighborhoods, we are talking about homes heavily fortified with modern smart security, Ring doorbells, wireless Arlo cameras, motion-activated floodlights.
The works.
So how is a criminal physically walking up a well-lit driveway, digging around in the landscaping, and planting a spy camera without triggering, like, a dozen different push notifications to the homeowner's phone?
Well, it's because your smart home isn't quite as smart as you think it is.
Okay, ouch. But explain.
Both Glendale Police and Placer County detectives have issued urgent warnings about a secondary piece of technology these crews rely on, and that is Wi-Fi signal blockers, or commonly known as jammers.
Right, jammers. But okay, let's break down the mechanics of that, because I see a massive logical gap here.
Go for it.
If the burglar is using a jammer to flood the homeowner's Wi-Fi network with noise so the smart cameras go offline, how on earth is the burglar's own hidden camera transmitting video back to them? Wouldn't the jammer knock out their surveillance feed too?
That is a great question, and it's the exact vulnerability they are exploiting. It all comes down to radio frequencies.
Okay, so different channels, basically.
Yeah. Your typical smart home security camera communicates with your router using standard consumer Wi-Fi bands, specifically 2.4 gigahertz or 5 gigahertz.
Right, the standard router frequencies.
A Wi-Fi jammer doesn't need to actually hack your network. It just blasts an overwhelming amount of raw radio noise onto those specific 2.4 and 5 gigahertz frequencies.
Oh, I see.
It's the digital equivalent of blasting an air horn in a library. Your camera and your router, they just can no longer hear each other over the noise.
Okay, so the smart home is essentially deafened, but the burglar's taped-up cell phone camera...
Operates on an entirely different spectrum.
Wait, really?
Yeah, those burner phones and hotspots use cellular networks, LTE or 5G bands. So while the jammer is completely suffocating the 2.4 gigahertz Wi-Fi network, the 5G cellular signal cuts right through the air untouched.
Wow, so what you're saying is that my expensive, state-of-the-art wireless smart doorbell is rendered completely useless by a jammer.
Unfortunately, yes. They create a localized blackout for your security system, walk right up the driveway, plant their cellular camera in the bushes, and walk away.
That's terrifying. Your expensive smart doorbell never records a single frame, and you never get an alert.
Exactly. The digital shield is completely bypassed.
Which means relying solely on a wireless security ecosystem is a critical vulnerability. So if the digital shield is down, how do we actually defend the house? How do we fix this?
Well, the primary technological fix is actually a step backward in time, surprisingly. The Glendale Police Department heavily advises hardwiring your critical security infrastructure.
Ah, because you cannot wirelessly jam a physical copper wire.
Precisely. If your camera data is traveling through a shielded Ethernet cable directly into a local server or a wired router inside your house, the brute force radio frequency noise in the air is completely irrelevant.
So the air horn is blasting, but your cameras are communicating over a closed intercom.
Exactly, it's a closed loop. Additionally, they recommend installing robust backup batteries for these systems so they run continuously, even if the intruders manually cut the main power lines. Oh, and lock your exterior electrical panels.
Okay, so hardwiring solves the data transmission issue, but essentially we need to treat our yards like a modern-day castle.
That's a good way to look at it.
Because these hidden cameras still exist in the physical world. If we change the physical environment, we remove their cover entirely. I was looking at this infographic provided by the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department, and it focuses entirely on environmental design.
Environmental design is honestly your strongest physical defense. The Sheriff's Department outlines what they call the 2-foot, 6-foot rule.
Okay, walk us through the mechanics of that. What is the 2-foot, 6-foot rule?
It's a landscaping protocol designed to eliminate blind spots. You basically trim all your ground-level shrubs so they are under 2 feet tall.
Okay, so keep the bushes short.
Right. Then, for your larger trees, you prune the lower branches so there is 6 feet of open, visible space below the canopy.
So you are removing the physical shadows. If a bush is under 2 feet, there just isn't enough dense foliage to hide a 10-inch battery brick.
Exactly.
And by clearing the 6-foot space under trees, you expose any potential prowlers to ambient street lighting.
That's it. You're taking away their cover. The Sheriff's Department also suggests planting aggressively thorny shrubs directly under ground floor windows and along your perimeter fences.
So the thorny bushes are our new barbed wire, or moat, and the hardwired cameras are the watchtowers. We're essentially talking about physical access control here.
Very much so.
Your digital firewall is utterly useless if a bad actor has physical access to your hardware. The thorny bushes aren't just decorative. They are a physical firewall preventing unauthorized access to the blind spots in your yard. It's physical denial of service.
That is a highly accurate way to frame it. And, extending that physical security mindset, the LA Sheriff's graphic highlights a major failure in basic operational security, or OPSEC, for most homeowners.
Oh, the discarded packaging. This stood out to me in the sources.
Yeah, it's a huge issue.
We aren't just talking about remembering to lock your deadbolts. We are talking about data leaks in the physical world.
Right. If you, say, purchase an 80-inch OLED TV and you just leave that massive intact box sitting on the curb next to your recycling bin for 3 days,
You're asking for trouble.
you have created an offline beacon. You are broadcasting to anyone running reconnaissance that there is high-value, easily fensible electronic loot inside that specific structure.
So what do we do?
You have to break the boxes down, cut them up, and conceal them entirely within the bin. It is just basic OPSCC.
Okay, so we've hardwired the data lines, pruned the physical firewalls, and cleaned up our offline data leaks. But let's move to the offensive.
All right, let's do it.
If you're listening to this right now and you want to ensure your yard is clean tonight, how do we actively hunt for these devices?
So there are both low-tech and high-tech methodologies for this. On the low-tech side, the LA County Sheriff recommends a really simple, slow flashlight sweep of your property at night.
Just a regular flashlight.
Yeah, you are looking for retro reflection. Even a tiny recessed camera lens is convex glass. So if you sweep a concentrated flashlight beam across the foliage, the glass will catch the beam and bounce a distinct, sharp glint back at your eye.
Which brings up a fascinating debate I was reading on the Rome Security Reddit community.
Oh, the smartphone debate.
Yes, several users were arguing that you don't even need a flashlight. They said you can just use your smartphone camera to sweep the yard because the hidden camera's infrared or IR lights will show up on your phone screen.
It sounds like a brilliant life hack.
Yeah.
But, as the more technically minded users in that thread correctly pointed out, it is highly flawed and actually dangerous.
Really? Why dangerous?
Because it gives you a false sense of security.
Because of the hardware in the phone itself, right?
Exactly. Most modern consumer smartphones and DSLR cameras are manufactured with IR cut filters built directly over their image sensors.
Wait, so what does that filter do?
Well, the manufacturer puts that filter there to block ambient infrared light so that your daytime photos have accurate, natural color reproduction.
Oh, wow. So your $1,000 smartphone is literally designed to filter out the exact frequency of light you're desperately trying to find.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
You could be staring right at an active IR camera through your phone screen and see absolutely nothing.
That is wild.
And compounding that issue, savvy burglary crews will often manually disable the IR illuminators on their hidden cameras anyway.
To save battery.
Precisely. Emitting IR light requires significant power. Since these devices have to survive in a bush for days on those battery banks, disabling the IR drastically extends their operational lifespan.
Yeah.
So relying on a smartphone sweep is just not viable.
Okay, so if the smartphone is a liability, what is the actual high-tech solution here? Because there's a whole industry of counter-surveillance gear out there.
There is, and the consumer guide from Digital Camera World is a superb primer on this. They break down the tiers of detection gear.
Okay, what do they recommend?
Well, for a reliable mid-range option, they point to the Sherry K68. It's a 4-in-1 tool that sweeps for standard radio frequencies, but it also detects the magnetic fields emitted by GPS trackers.
Oh, which is incredibly useful if you suspect a crew has tagged your vehicle, like, while you were out shopping to track you back to your residential address.
Exactly. Now, for listeners who travel frequently, the guide highlights the Voivy G6 Sport.
The Voyage
Yeah,
G6.
it charges via USB-C and is highly portable. It's engineered specifically for quickly sweeping an Airbnb or a hotel room. But if you want to elevate this to a professional level and actually map the invisible signals in your environment, they recommend the Latinx SBA6G.
I was looking at the specs on the Latinx. This isn't just a wand that beeps at you, it is a visual spectrum analyzer.
It is hardcore.
You are literally looking at a screen mapping out the radio frequencies in real time. You can visually isolate where a Wi-Fi signal ends and an unauthorized LTE cellular signal begins spiking in your yard.
It essentially visualizes the RF landscape for you.
Ah.
But regardless of whether you use the Sherry K68 or the Latinx, the methodology of the sweep is what actually determines your success.
Okay, so how do we sweep properly?
Well, before you step foot outside, you have to silence the digital noise of your own home.
You have to eliminate the false positives.
Right. Put your personal cell phones in airplane mode.
Mhm.
Unplug your home Wi-Fi routers. Power down the smart TVs, the wireless printers, all of it. You have to create a baseline of digital silence.
Okay, so once the house is dark, digitally speaking, how do you actually trace the signal?
You take your detector outside, turn the sensitivity to maximum, and begin walking the perimeter. When the device picks up a transmission and begins vibrating or alerting, you don't panic. You actually turn the sensitivity down.
Wait, down, because you are shrinking the detection radius. Right.
Exactly. As you get closer to the source of the transmission, the signal gets stronger. By continuously throttling the sensitivity down, you are filtering out the ambient bleed.
Oh, that's smart.
Yeah, it forces the detector to only alert when it is mere inches from the transmitter. It leads you right to the specific branch.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting, though. Let's say I execute this sweep flawlessly.
Right.
I silence the house, I isolate the LTE spike, I part the leaves, and there it is. A cell phone wrapped in green tape, wired to an Anchor battery bank.
Found it.
My immediate visceral instinct is going to be to grab a hammer and shatter the lens. If I leave it intact, I am literally staring down the barrel of a live feed. They know that I know, so why shouldn't I just smash it?
Because you are actively destroying a crime scene. And you're burning the only bridge the police have back to the network.
Wait, really?
Yeah. Clayster County Sheriff's detectives have been very explicit about this. When they recover one of these surveillance rigs intact, it is a forensic gold mine.
What kind of data are they actually pulling from a taped-up burner phone?
Tons. They can extract the SIM card telemetry to see exactly which cell towers it was pinging.
Oh, wow.
They pull the device's IMEI number, which can sometimes be tracked back to a specific point of purchase. They can analyze the cloud sync logs to see what IP addresses the video feed was being routed to.
That's a lot of data.
And they can even recover deleted footage that might show the face of the operative who actually planted it.
Ah, I see. So destroying the camera might make you feel secure in the moment, but it basically guarantees the crew behind it remains entirely anonymous to law enforcement.
Exactly. So you do exactly what George and Goyen did. You place your thumb over the lens, physically turn the device so it faces a brick wall, and you immediately call law enforcement to handle the digital forensics.
Okay, that makes total sense. So let's synthesize everything we've uncovered here for the listener. The threat of residential espionage is real. It is orchestrated by sophisticated theft groups, and it relies on exploiting the gap between your physical landscaping and your wireless digital security. To harden your defenses, you need to hardwire your critical cameras to bypass jammers. You must practice basic OPSEC with your physical data leaks, like those high-value TV boxes.
Break them down.
Right. You need to implement the 2-foot, 6-foot pruning rule to remove physical blind spots in your yard. And you should absolutely integrate a dedicated flashlight or RF sweep into your routine.
It's all about layering your security.
Yeah.
And, as we close out this deep dive, there's an overarching trajectory here that is just vital to consider.
What's up?
Well, right now, these networks are relying on bulky, taped-up external battery banks and consumer cell phones.
Mm.
But surveillance hardware never stops miniaturizing.
It only gets smaller and more efficient.
Exactly. So consider what happens to suburban security when this tech inevitably evolves. What happens when these devices no longer require massive battery bricks because they run indefinitely on highly efficient microsolar panels?
Oh, man.
Even more chilling, what happens when they no longer need to broadcast a continuous, easily detectable video feed?
What do you mean? What's the alternative?
Imagine a hidden camera equipped with edge AI that silently analyzes the visual field entirely on the device itself.
Oh, so it's not transmitting constantly.
Right. Emitting zero radio frequency for days and only sending a microburst encrypted text message to the strike team the exact millisecond it recognizes your car leaving the driveway.
Wow. That completely neutralizes standard RF detection. The moat around on physical firewalls is going to have to get significantly wider, and our counter-surveillance tactics will have to adapt just as fast.
The arms race is only accelerating.
Well, that is quite the thought to leave us with. But that is all the time we have for today's deep dive. We truly hope this exploration armed you with the actionable intelligence you need to evaluate your own property and keep your home secure.
Stay safe out there.
Yes. And before you go, I want to remind you one last time, please like, subscribe, follow, and hit that notification bell. It is the absolute best way to support the show and ensure you join us for our next investigation. Stay vigilant, keep a close eye on your landscaping, and we will see you next time.